Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Kitchen Design Experts. Now we're the channel that tells you everything you need to know about kitchens, kitchen design and kitchen appliances. And that's our topic today. We're going to talk about multifunction ovens. What are they? What they can do for you? And do you really need one? But first of all, let's have a little bit of a history lesson and take you back in that time machine to the early 70s again, when I first started in this business. When I was first selling ovens, the only form of cooking system that used to be available was what we call conventional cooking, which was based around two elements, either top and bottom of the oven cavity or side by side. This was what was available to everybody in every sort of oven in the early 70s. Then we started to see, coming across from the continent, something called hot air cooking. And what that was the elements, rather than being top and bottom or side side, were actually arranged around a fan in the back of the oven. So what does this do for you, here you ask? Basically, that means that the temperature in the oven cavity is more evenly distributed at each shelf level. Whereas with conventional ovens, the top of the oven used to get a lot hotter than the bottom of the oven. So you might set it at 250 degrees, but it's hotter at the top and it's cooler at the bottom. So the whole concept of what we call batch baking, i.e. you're going to bake 40 scones on 3 different shelf levels, didn't work very well in conventional ovens because some would be burnt and some would be undercooked. But with the hot air system that came in, each shelf level had the same temperature and it opened up a whole new world. Now, some appliance manufacturers took their conventional ovens, and because they saw that this fan cooking was catching on, rather than do anything different, all they did was put a fan in the back of the oven. There was no elements around the fan, and they still used the two conventional elements and just agitated the air a little bit. And I think they called it fan-assisted cooking, and that term is still with us today in actual fact. But typically, it didn't do anything different. When you had this conventional oven, even though there was a fan at the back, it still was hotter at the top than it was at the bottom. That fan-assisted type of cooking is not what we're talking about when we're talking about hot air cooking. So basically, I'd like to go through, that was the start. That was actually the start of what we call a multifunction cooking system. Just those two possibilities, 3 perhaps if you add in the grill at the top. And that's where the multifunction concept began. But since then, it's been added to with many, many more functions. Now today we're going to talk about the popular functions. There are more than we're going to talk about today, many, many more. But they tend to be not the ones that are the most used and not that popular. So we're going to focus on the ones that could be of interest to yourselves. And we're going to start with the hot air cooking that I just mentioned. The symbol for this generally, when you look at it, is a fan. It's a circle with a fan inside, just as this one here. So what is it exactly, hot air cooking? What do you get from it? Now, as I previously mentioned, it gives this even distribution of heat at each shelf level because the actual elements are arranged around the fan and it blows the hot air in at each shelf level, takes it back, and it will circulate throughout the oven. There are different names, different manufacturers have different names for it. Hot air cooking, circotherm cooking, 4D cooking. But essentially, if the elements are arranged around the fan at the back, it's a form of hot air cooking. Yes, it's got many advantages. It's good for all types of cooking, although it can be a little bit fierce for cakes, etc. Because it's a drier, quicker heat. It can bake the cake on the outside, but not have it baked on the inside. So we'll come back to the best system for cakes in a minute. However, yes, hot air cooking, prevalent in the country now. I think everybody knows it. I think if you look in your oven, most people have got a hot air oven these days. Just very versatile, very flexible. Just to give you one example, I've got a hot air oven at home, and let's take the humble sausage for instance. I do my sausages not under a grill, because when you put your sausages under a grill, the fat tends to spit, and then it hits the open grill element at the top, and then smoke starts to come out. And then with all that fat that's gone onto your grill element, the next time you use your grill, it smokes again. It's really a very unclean way of cooking sausages. So what I tend to do is I use the hot air system. I'll just put the sausages in the middle of the oven, whack the hot air system on, not the grill. So you've not got an open element for the fat to spit onto, and it actually cooks the sausages all round without the necessity of turning them. That's just one example, but there are many, many more. So that's your hot air cooking function. Let's move on now to conventional cooking. That's usually depicted by a symbol with two lines, top and bottom, as per this image here.
Sorry to interrupt the video, but I have some very exciting news for you from Holt's Kitchen Design Experts. Now, many of you have contacted us and asked us to help you with your own projects, and I'm delighted to say that so far we've successfully helped quite a few of you. So much so that we've decided to launch officially an online service. What this means is that you can now take personal advantage of what amounts to well over 100 years of design and appliance experience. You can access that now, because what we've done, we've created 3 different packages, if you like, to consider different budgets, different requirements, and also considering whereabouts you are in the world. So you have access to that right now. All you need to do to learn more completely without obligation is email us at hello@holtskde.uk. I'll leave that link down below. You know, there really never has been a better time for you to finally create your dream kitchen. And we would dearly love to help you to do that. I hope to speak to you soon. Okay, back to the video.
So conventional cooking. This will be available in most ovens alongside the hot air system. And I think a basic oven would perhaps just have those two along with a grill. So you've got 3 methods of cooking in a basic multifunction oven. So the conventional cooking, as I say, it's a slower, steadier way of cooking. You've got you can set your cooking on one level ideally, because that's the temperature setting you want to aim for. You will see some recipe books where they will actually say cook in the top of the oven, because they're banking on the fact that the top of the oven will be the hottest part of it, and when they give you a suggested temperature setting, it's based on the top of the oven, not the bottom. But like I said before, things that need to be cooked a little bit more slowly, a bit more delicate. If you've got a cake with a moist topping, conventional cooking is far better than hot air cooking. The hot air cooking, as I say, is drier, and you will see on most recipes they'll give you 2 temperature settings, one for conventional, which is a bit higher, and one a little lower for hot air cooking. So, or they'll call it fan assisted perhaps. So that's conventional cooking, very simple. It's better for some particular dishes than the hot air, so it's certainly worthwhile going for an oven that gives you the choice of both hot air and conventional. So let's move on now to something called hot air circulated grilling, or perhaps fan assisted grilling. And that's usually shown a symbol with a grill element at the top and a little fan underneath it, such as this symbol here. So, circulated air grilling or hot air grilling, what is this? Basically, if you imagine in the old days a rotisserie, we used to do ovens. I remember an old Moffat oven that had one, going back a long time, and it had a rotisserie in the actual oven, and you used to put your chicken onto these prongs, stick it into the back of the oven, and it actually turned the chicken round. So you'd have your grill element on at the top, and the chicken turned. And obviously, rotisserie effect, it cooked the chicken all the way around, and the juices used to run over the chicken, and it was great. It was really good. However, this hot air grilling system now has taken the place of the rotisserie. And what it actually does, it turns the grill element on, so it's quite a fierce heat at the top. but then it alternates with the fan. The grill element will click off, the fan will click on, and the fan will circulate the grill heat around the chicken or the joint. So what you're actually doing is, rather than turning the meat through the heat, it's the other way around. You turn the heat around the meat. And it's obviously a lot less cumbersome than having a rotisserie stuck in your oven, were always hard to clean anyway. And yes, it works a treat for things such as chickens, joints, that you want browned on the outside, succulent in the middle, and cooked obviously all the way around. So that is what we call hot air grilling. And again, it's fairly common now in multifunction ovens. You don't use it that often, but when you do use it, you're really glad you've got it. Now the next one is quite self-explanatory. That is flat grilling. And first of all, the flat grilling symbol is that wavy line at the top, such as this. Flat grilling. Actually, because of the hot air system you'll have in your oven, it's not as useful as it used to be. I've already mentioned sausages. I do the same with bacon. My entire breakfast can be cooked with hot air these days rather than using the grill. In fact, I generally only use a grill now. Toast possibly, but a toaster is more efficient, I think, than heating a full grill element. Or perhaps just gratin your potatoes, you're melting some cheese. That's where your grill comes in these days. I don't think you want to rely on your grill for anything other than that. It's quite simple, really. Now, you'll also get in multifunction ovens usually the choice of a smaller grill, a smaller area, so you're not heating up the full element. And that symbol is still the wavy line, but a little smaller, such as this. Obviously, I don't need to go into great detail about a smaller grill, except you cook smaller things underneath it. That's about it, really. So let's quickly move on to the next setting that is typically available in multifunction ovens, and that's actually pizza setting. And that's generally shown, again, with a fan with a flat line underneath it. Basically, that symbol of a fan and a flat line underneath it gives you the suggestion that the elements that are being used here are the fan at the back, with the elements arranged around the fan, but also, in addition to that, the bottom element only. Now, this is great for pizzas, but it's also good for other dishes that want to have an intensive heat from below, so it doesn't necessarily burn the top. I use this quite a lot. I find it very useful. It's perfect for pizzas, obviously. What happens is the heat's coming from underneath, cooking the base of the pizza, and the fan around is agitating the air and pushing it in each shelf level, and it'll cook the pizza on the top. But basically, it's only really good to do that on one level. That bottom, if you've got a pizza at the bottom and you put one above it, then the intense heat underneath isn't cooking the base quite as much as it is the bottom pizza. So I tend to use that on a one level only, even though it has the fan at the back. Moving on again now to what we call bottom heat only, and that really is shown, depicted by the symbol with just a line at the bottom, such as this here. As I think you're catching on now, what this will do is just turn the bottom element on only, so all the heat is coming from underneath. It's great for finishing your baking, your cooking. It's also good for bain-marie cooking. So you get the heat coming from underneath, heating the water, etc. Really, there's not much difference between this and the pizza setting, except that it's not really cooking anything from the top at all. It's all coming from underneath. Sometimes a dish may be like a quiche, where again, you've cooked it, but you just want to do a little bit extra from underneath there. Perfect if you've got this bottom element only choice. And finally, let's just talk about another setting that's available on a lot of ovens, which is quite simply plate warming. That's usually depicted by a symbol where you've got an image of some plates and heat coming off the plates. Very typical to this symbol here. Now, I don't have to say much about plate warming. It warms your plates. Obviously, it sets it as a specific temperature that will keep your plates nice and warm. And yeah, I've got to say, when you've put a lot of effort into a meal, it is nice to serve it on a warmed plate. The only problem I find, though, if you've just got a single oven, then usually you're cooking something in the oven and the temperature's got quite high. Putting your plate warming setting on then doesn't really work that well. So it really only comes into play when you've got maybe two single ovens, Or you've got a double oven whereby you've got multifunction in both cavities, but that's very rare. Usually when you get a double oven, the top oven is a conventional oven only and the bottom oven is the one that is multifunction. So plate warming, great advantage, but not much use if you've only got one single oven. One of the other big advantages of a multifunction oven is that because it's got elements top and bottom, and it's also got elements around the fan at the back, is most of these ovens will have something called a rapid heating button, which basically what that does, if you press the rapid heating button to warm the oven up, because obviously all recipes say get your oven up to a certain temperature, what it does, it turns all the elements on at once. So you're going to get your desired temperature level hit much faster than you would if it just had the two top and bottom elements. So the rapid heating is actually a very valuable source when you come to looking at a multifunction oven. You'll find that very useful indeed. As I said at the beginning, there are actually many more oven functions available in some multifunction ovens. You've got intensive heat, you've got defrosting, you've got keeping food warm, you've got bake assist. I could go on. And what you need to do really is you need to really consider what you need. Do you do a lot of baking? Do you do a lot of defrosting from the freezer? And whether these extra functions are going to be valuable to you. I think the big problem you've got is if you are designing a full fitted kitchen, all your effort goes into the design of that kitchen and you'd sometimes forget about the appliances, especially the oven. And you do need to take a step back, I think, and consider your oven in depth, because when you actually start to use your kitchen, you really do need to know what the oven's doing for you, because you do not want to turn around and say, oh, I wish I'd had that extra multifunction in my oven. I wish I'd gone for that. Do your research. Have a look at all these different ovens. Hopefully, I've managed to give you an idea of the basic settings of a multifunction oven. It's whether or not you need these additional ones as well. But please, if you've got any questions whatsoever, you know where we are. Just put your questions in the comments box below. We'll be more than happy to get back to you. And thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.